They're lurking just beneath the waves, waiting for your ship to pass. Blue-skinned creatures with glowing eyes and an insatiable hunger for human souls. The local fishermen won't even speak their names above a whisper. For centuries, these mythical beings have been blamed for countless shipwrecks in one of the most dangerous stretches of water in all of Scotland. But here's what the history books don't tell you. These creatures could be real. Welcome to the treacherous waters of the Minch, the narrow strait that separates mainland Scotland from the Outer Hebrides. I'm standing here on the rocky shores, where countless sailors have reported terrifying encounters with what locals call the Blue Men. And before you click away thinking this is just another fairy tale, let me tell you, there's compelling historical evidence suggesting these legends might have a shocking origin story that connects to actual people who once lived in these waters. The Blue Men of the Minch, also known as storm kelpies, are unlike any mythological creatures you've ever heard of. They're not your typical merfolk or sea monsters. According to centuries of Scottish folklore, these blue-skinned humanoid creatures inhabit the waters specifically around the Cheyenne Isles. What makes them truly unique? They don't just mindlessly attack ships. They're intelligent, organized, and have a particular method for deciding whether sailors live or die. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly do these creatures look like? Scottish accounts describe them as having distinctly blue-tinted skin, powerful physiques, and strangely, green beards and hair. Some stories portray them as half-human, half-fish creatures similar to mermen, while others insist they look almost entirely human except for their unusual coloration. They're said to have gray faces that appear above the waves they create with what witnesses described as long, restless arms. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. These blue men aren't random wanderers of the sea. They operate in an organized society, living in underwater caves in a clan-based structure ruled by a chief sometimes identified as Seonide or Shoni. They have sentinels constantly on the lookout for passing ships, and when vessels are spotted, they gather for potential attacks. And if you're planning a sailing trip to the Hebrides anytime soon, you might want to brush up on your poetry skills. I'm dead serious. The most famous aspect of Blue Men mythology involves their interactions with passing ships. When targeting a vessel, the chief Blue Man rises from the water and shouts 2 lines of poetry to the ship's captain. To survive, the captain must immediately respond with 2 additional lines to complete the verse. Success means safe passage. Failure? The Blue Men will capsize the ship and drown everyone aboard. One famous exchange recorded in Scottish folklore goes like this. The chief of the Blue Men rises from the churning waters and shouts, "My men are eager, my men are ready to drag you below the waves." The quick-thinking captain responds, "My ship is speedy, my ship is steady. If it sank, it would wreck your caves." Impressed by the captain's wit and poetic skill, the Blue Men would have no power to harm the ship and would signal their followers to dive back beneath the waves. But who, or what, could have inspired such specific and localized legends? This is where our story takes a fascinating turn into actual history. Several compelling theories exist about the origins of the Blue Men, and some of them might surprise you. One historical theory connects them to misidentifications of the ancient Picts, a tribal confederation who lived in eastern and northern Scotland during the late Iron Age and early medieval periods. The Picts were known to paint their bodies blue and possibly used small kayak-like boats. To observers from a distance, they might have appeared as blue figures emerging mysteriously from the water. But perhaps the most intriguing theory links the Blue Men to North African slaves, specifically Moors, brought to the region by Viking raiders who wintered near the Cheyenne Isles. This theory suggests a specific connection to the Tuareg people, historically known as the Blue Men of the Desert, due to their indigo clothing and headscarves, which could stain their skin with a bluish tint. Could shipwrecked or escaped Tuareg slaves have become the basis for these enduring legends? You might be thinking, but these are just old stories meant to explain storms and shipwrecks, right? And to some extent, you'd be correct. The Blue Men do represent a personification of the sea itself, particularly its dangerous and unpredictable nature. The strait between the mainland and the Hebrides is notorious for treacherous conditions, and the Blue Men provided an explanation for shipping disasters in an era before modern weather forecasting. But there's another practical purpose to these legends that's often overlooked. The emphasis on quick-witted verbal responses might have encouraged captains to remain alert and mentally sharp during dangerous passages. It also elevated the cultural importance of poetic skill among seafaring communities, a talent highly valued in traditional Scottish culture. The cultural impact of the Blue Men extends beyond seafaring tales. The mythology influenced local customs and traditions, particularly relating to harvest and weather. On Samhain, what we now know as Halloween, coastal communities would perform rituals involving lighting candles by the sea and pouring ale into the water as offerings to the Blue Men. These offerings were made in hopes that the Blue Men would reciprocate by leaving seaweed on the beach, which could then be used as fertilizer for crops. Their presence lives on in songs and poetry attributed to Scottish boatmen. One haunting verse captures their essence. When the tide is at the turning and the wind is fast asleep, and not a wave is curling on the wide blue deep, oh, the waters will be churning in the stream that never smiles, where the Blue Men are splashing round the charmed isles. What makes the legend of the Blue Men of the Minch particularly special is how remarkably localized it has remained. Unlike more widespread supernatural beings in Scottish folklore, these blue-skinned sea dwellers are specifically tied to the waters between the Outer Hebrides and mainland Scotland. This regional specificity has helped preserve the distinctive character of the myth, making it a unique element of Outer Hebridean culture. The Blue Men of the Minch demonstrate how maritime communities have historically used mythology to make sense of their environment, encode cultural values, and possibly preserve historical memories. Their enduring presence in Scottish folklore offers valuable insights into how coastal peoples conceptualize their relationship with the sea, a relationship characterized by both respect and fear, opportunity and danger, much like the capricious Blue Men themselves. So the next time you find yourself sailing through these waters, and the sea grows suspiciously calm as the wind falls silent, keep your eyes on the waves, and perhaps most importantly, have a poem ready. The Blue Men of the Minch might be listening. If you enjoyed discovering the mysteries of the Blue Men of the Minch, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to join us on more journeys exploring the world's most fascinating mythological creatures. Next week, we'll be diving into another legendary sea creature with surprising historical origins. Drop a comment below with your theories about the Blue Men, or share any Scottish folklore you'd like to see covered in future videos. Until then, keep your wits sharp and your poetry sharper. You never know when you might need them.